Hello everyone, Lytro Storm here, and today we are beginning a new series. What if Turles was BARDOCK'S brother? This one will be a collab with Vegan Saiyan, so once you finish this first part, be sure to check out the next one on his channel. It should go up around the same time as this one, so the link will be in the description. And potentially the comment section as well. So now let's just go ahead and get straight into this video. So to begin our story, we're going to have to do some work on both Turles and BARDOCK'S origin stories. I'm going to have Turles be a younger brother to Bardock, who is also part of his squad. Turles isn't quite as strong as Bardock, and fits more with the rest of the team's power levels. Over the years, he and Fasha have both taken a liking to each other, but nothing has really come of it so far. Before we go on, I do want to preface that we will be adapting both the original Bardock special, as well as his newer origin, in order to make a decent story. So the stuff with the Knassans here will not take place, but the squad does fight on a different planet. After they win the battle, the crew all decide to head back to planet Vegeta and await their next mission. Bardock and Turles go home together, since Turles has been living with his brother's family for quite some time. On the way there, Bardock overhears about the Super Saiyan legend, and remembers the transmission they got from Frieza to have every Saiyan gather on planet Vegeta. It all starts to click with Bardock, and he frantically tells his younger brother that Frieza was going to kill every Saiyan tonight. Turles wasn't fully understanding at first, but he did get what Bardock was saying. So the two rushed back to their home so Bardock could tell Guinea what was going to happen. When they arrive, they both hear Tora's voice on their scouters telling them that they've been assigned a last-minute mission. Bardock tells Turles that he's got to inform Guinea of the situation and also decide what to do with his son. His brother says alright and lets Tora know over the scouter that he is on his way before flying off. The squad has already been deployed, so Turles was a little bit behind, but he would still be able to catch up. The crew lands on the planet, and Tora reports to Turles that there isn't much activity here. Wait, that word is the last thing heard before the transmission is violently cut off. Turles yells at them, asking what's going on, and Tora screams in the scouter once again that it's an ambush. Turles quickly lands the pod and arrives to see his friends standing against a bunch of Frieza soldiers. Tora asks who sent them, and one of them replies, well, Dodoria, of course. Turles yells that Bardock knew Frieza was up to something today, and the elite soldiers simply laughed. The battle now began, with Bardock's crew doing much better now that Turles was here. However, the five were still outmatched. After a while, they began to fall one after another. First Borgos, then Shugesh, each fell to the ground, and the three that remained all had battle damage. One of the elites then fired a large blast at Fasha, and Turles decided to jump in the way of the attack. It hit him head on, leading to Turles being launched into the ground nearby. Both Tora and Fasha yelled out his name as the elites quickly approached them both. Turles looked toward them, his vision blurred, and heard a heavy blow as he fell out of consciousness. He awoke much later, at first confused at what happened. However, he quickly realized the situation and struggled to stand. Turles looked around the area, seeing his friends dead on the ground. Even though he had just stood back up, he fell to his knees, screaming in agony due to the fates that had befallen his comrades. The Saiyan then began to remember his brother. He turned on his scouter and contacted Bardock, quickly telling him of the setup, which only confirmed his suspicion of Frieza. Bardock told Turles that he was going to take a stand while Frieza tries to kill them. Of course, Turles wants to help his brother to defend his home and get revenge, but Bardock reminds him that this is a losing battle. He needs to stay as far away as possible. Turles reluctantly stops arguing and begins to ask a question. What about Kat? Bardock cuts him off, immediately yelling no. He doesn't want any of Frieza's men finding out about his son being sent away. Bardock tells his brother to go off and one day find what he's looking for. He is trying to be as cryptic as possible while still giving Turles what he needs to know. Turles accepts this hesitantly, and Bardock says goodbye. Turles now stands alone on this planet, getting up and shambling to his pod. He flew past all the planets nearby before arriving to a viewpoint of planet Vegeta. He saw a blue light flying through the atmosphere, and then a giant orange ball of energy being sent down. This completely snuffed out everything in its path, finally ending in the destruction of the planet. As Turles watched this, he began cursing everything and raging out, slamming his fists on the pod controls. After he calmed down, he saw only one last option. He turned on his scouter and began listening for any transmissions from anyone. He sat there waiting a while before hearing the voice of Saiyan General Nappa. The man was asking for any other survivors to regroup at their location. Turles had remembered his brother's older son, Raditz, being a part of Nappa's group, and so he introduced himself and said that he'd be there shortly. Turles joins up with Vegeta and his squad while he's in a very dark time in his life. He has now lost his friends, his brother, and his entire world has been ripped away from him, both literally and figuratively. And with no other outlet to use his emotions on, the only choice is on the missions he and his squad goes on. Wiping out enemies on other planets is something Turles has done his entire life, so he was able to take out his rage on all of his opponents, brutally killing each one. He has no way to get revenge on Frieza, Dodoria, or any of his elites, as they were all just far too strong. I mean, they already beat him already. However, he was able to tell Vegeta and the others about Frieza destroying Planet Vegeta. This angers them all at first, but they also know that they can't do much to end Frieza either, so they basically are back to how they were in canon within a very short time. Over the course of a few years, Turles would have fought in many battles, leading to his anger causing problems in the team. He would charge blindly into battles he couldn't win, which would lead to Turles to get a beatdown. This meant that the others on the squad would have to bail him out of fights, which led to the death of both Extra Saiyans we see in the Broly film. After they died, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz would be the only ones to help him in the situations, which would make Vegeta very angry. So he eventually just tells Turles that he's off the team. He's too much of a liability for them, so he's gotta go somewhere else. He and Nappa then leave to go to their pods, and the young Raditz is left with his uncle. He tries to get him to come with him, but Turles shuns him, telling Raditz to get lost. He doesn't need it. Raditz is a little upset at this, as even his uncle has been treating him cruelly lately, so he just simply goes on with Vegeta and Nappa. This leaves Turles all alone on a random planet yet again. Because of this, he decides to go off the radar, still keeping a scouter so he can listen in on Frieza's army just in case anything interesting occurs. Over the years, Turles would make himself something of a pirate, conquering planets and recruiting a team of his own along the way. After all, he's always been in other people's squads, so why not have one where he's in charge? So he would now have the Crusher Corps that we see in the movie, but without the whole Tree of Might thing. I feel like that's kind of unnecessary to add here because of what will take place soon. Just trust me on this one. Being on his own also led Turles to develop his own unique fighting style among Saiyans, one with a much more finesse and unique key abilities like we see in the movie and games that he's in. So at this point, he has become the same evil guy we saw in his film. One day, Turles would hear a transmission on his scouter from the other Saiyans, something about Raditz's death. This was upsetting, of course, as that boy was the only thing he had left of a family. But then they mentioned another name, Kakarot. This caused Turles to listen far closer than he had before, hearing that he had died as well, but that they were supposedly going to bring him back with some Dragon Balls. He waited for the location, finally hearing about Earth, and decided that this was perfect. Vegeta and Nappa were going to Earth, which is also where Kakarot is. Turles immediately told the rest of the Crusher Corps that they're going to take a long trip as well, to planet Earth. So basically, everything with Goku and the gang has all taken place the exact same way. But now that the Crusher Corps are getting involved, things are about to take a big turn. And so, a year would pass before Vegeta and Nappa finally arrived on Earth. Everything would play out in a similar way to in canon, up until the point of where Vegeta allows Krillin, Gohan, and Piccolo to wait for Goku. Halfway into their time, Vegeta's scouter would pick up 6 notable power levels arriving on Earth. He notices them coming toward the area, and so he and the others wait. After a short time, the two Saiyans are surprised to see none other than Turles. His power level has drastically improved, being at a solid 7,000. Obviously, if I used Turles and his crew's power level from the movie, it would be very overpowered, so I decided not to. Plus, I feel like this range of power makes more sense, as Vegeta and Nappa really didn't get that much stronger either, and Turles is kinda just doing the same thing that they did, but on his own. So it'd be weird if he got insanely powerful because of that. Turles chuckles as he greets his former comrades, but assures them that he's not here for them. He then turns his attention to Piccolo, Krillin, and Gohan. The three are shocked, as they were expecting Goku to show up, not some evil guy who looks like him. Turles blitzes over to Krillin, lifting him up by his shirt and demanding to know where Kakarot is. Krillin didn't really get who he was talking about, but Vegeta reminded him that it was the man they're waiting for. Krillin then says that Goku hasn't shown up yet, but when he does, they'll all be sorry. Turles grins and readies a blast to fire at Krillin, but Piccolo begins to speak. "Look, we've got enough to deal with as is. Think you can cut us a break and wait for your turn?" Turles is a bit offended by this, but respects Piccolo's bravery, so he decides to drop Krillin to the ground instead. The rest of the Crusher Corps then arrives, and Vegeta concludes that they must be the other power levels his scouter picked up. Turles then grins at his former comrade, asking if he liked his improvement. Of course, now he could take Nappa without much difficulty based on how his power level stacks up. This makes Nappa increasingly angry as Turles' men chuckle at their leader's snide remarks. And so, Nappa eventually lashes out, throwing a fist at Turles, but he was able to catch it in his palm. He then responds by twisting his arm and knocking him aside. Nappa is even more infuriated now, but Vegeta reminds him to be calm. Turles seems much more calculated than when they last saw him, so brute force isn't going to win. This makes Nappa realize what he has to do, and so he steadies his breathing in order to focus better. However, unlike Goku, Turles will continue to boast about his own power, which he knows will knock Nappa off of what he was trying to do. So this causes him to continue being angry and fail all of his attacks and eventually be beaten by Turles. The Saiyan Brute does manage to get some attacks off though, so he isn't completely useless in this fight. But Turles just eventually makes Nappa drop to the ground, completely burnt out. Just then, Piccolo and the others would sense Goku's ki, and Vegeta and Turles also pick it up on their scouters. Kakarot is on his way. The two Saiyans begin to bicker about who will take Kakarot first, as they both have intentions of testing him. To Vegeta, this is more of a long-awaited battle, but to Turles, this is more than just that. It's a chance for him to keep Kakarot safe by making him join up with him. He can fulfill what he couldn't do for his brother Bardock before, and do what he told him to do. Goku does eventually arrive, giving a split Senzu bean to Krillin and Piccolo, since Gohan wasn't really involved in fighting too much, so he wouldn't be as injured. He then tells the three to go off somewhere, and so they do. Goku is shocked to see so many more people here than before, and also someone who looks just like him. Turles smiles at seeing Kakarot fully grown, and tells him that he is his uncle. However, Goku doesn't really care since he's evil, and says that he'll defeat him too if he doesn't leave the Earth. Turles then replies, "Don't be naive, little one. The scouter read your power level as only 5,000. You're not prepared for this fight." Goku looks back with a serious face. "I wouldn't be so sure." Turles then prepares himself for the fight, and Vegeta decides that he can wait while the two battle it out. Letting the two kill each other will be better for him in the long run. And so the two lookalikes get into their fighting stances, and Turles tells his men to go after Piccolo and the others. Goku is surprised by this and turns toward Turles' men, but his opponent hits him in the chest, knocking him to the ground. They have already left. It was just Turles and Goku now. "I'm doing this to protect you, Kakarot." Turles remarks, "Save it for someone who needs it, like the others on this planet." Turles laughs, replying that they aren't valuable to him at all. Goku then charges in to attack Turles, being angry at this remark, and that is where we're going to leave off for now. If you want to see what happens next, part 2 is up right now on Vegan Saiyan's channel. So click the link that should be in the comments section or search the name Vegan Saiyan up. It should be pretty easy to find. But as always, tell me if you like this part, go watch part 2 now and see what happens next, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, have a great day.